Welcome back to the Alternative Spring Break, brought to you by Words, Beats, and Life. And today we have Nadia Malik, who is the director of the Porch Light department at Mural Arts Philadelphia. Mural Arts is a multi-million-dollar nonprofit that does amazing public art all over the city of Philadelphia and now expanding towards the region. So I'd like to introduce you to my friend,
Great to see you.
Nadia Malik. So how are you doing?
Good. It's great to be able to sit down and chat with you.
Can you explain to everyone what Porch Light is? What is the program? What's the department about?
Yeah. So Porch Light, so Mural Arts has a bunch of departments. And, I think people think we do public art, we do murals, but the departments are all kind of focused on specific areas of work. So Porch Light is all about mental health and behavioral health. So we're using art as a pathway for mental health. We're a partnership with a city department. It's called the Department of Behavioral Health, DBH or DBH-IDS. And the idea really was like mental health is stigmatized. People don't want to go to clinical services, especially a lot of communities that might not have access, a lot of communities that don't have time to go to clinical services. So the idea was to be out in the community using art as a way to destigmatize mental health.
And what's some of the stigma that comes with mental health, behavioral health in your work, in your line of work?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of thoughts of like, hey, if I have a mental health issue, there's something wrong with me. People will think that I'm not capable of being being in a space, working. There's this idea, I think when you have a physical health problem, no one thinks that it's your fault that you have a physical health problem. But with mental health, there's this idea of like, oh, you might have caused this, even though most of the things that happen to us are because of what's happening in our mind, what's happening in our body, or trauma that was inflicted on us. But there's still this kind of stigma that, oh, well, I caused this or I'm less than because I have a mental health issue. I don't think anybody would feel like, oh, I have symptoms of a physical health issue. Like they might feel hesitant about going to a doctor, but they're not like, oh, it's my fault that this is happening. Mental health, it's like, well, we don't have that same understanding.
And it's interesting you brought that up because we've been seeing the evolution around the conversation of mental health for all people. Like people are pushing equity, diversifying their approaches to it, learning more. There's so much awareness around it. What are some of the things that you brought into the department to help expand the stakeholders of the program and how they see mental health, as well as your staff?
Yeah, I mean, we both come from communities of color, and I think different communities of color approach mental health in different ways. I know I come from an immigrant community. My parents are immigrants. And I think there's this idea that you come to the country, I think as a child of an immigrant, you don't ever want to put a burden on your parents of like, there's something going on with me. You made this choice to move here and now I have issues. But it's just the reality that there's things that come up as being a child of an immigrant. And so in our department, I'm really proud of my team because we have approached mental health with this idea that not everybody has the same approach to it, not everybody has the same background. We do a lot of refugee and immigrant programs where it is this idea of we're talking to people about mental health and literally and figuratively in their language, right? It's, they're coming from other cultures where they don't have the same background. They might not want to, many of them might not want to say anxiety or depression or say those words, but they want to talk about that. They want to talk about their struggles. A lot of the refugee programs, they're refugees of war, which is the kind of PTSD that not many people can relate to. It's really, really high level PTSD. And, in talking to those folks, we have to find a way to talk in their language, in their cultural background. And so for us, it's really hiring and making sure we have people in our programs that reflect the backgrounds of the people that we work with.
And what's some of the mental health challenges that you've seen come through the door as you try to introduce art as a way of healing and a path forward for people to reconcile with where they are in their life?
We see everything, really. We work with a lot. Some of our programs focus specifically on substance use. We work in a neighborhood in Philadelphia called Kensington. It's kind of the epicenter of the opiate crisis in the country, really. It's definitely the epicenter of the opiate crisis in the area, but it's one of the largest open-air drug markets in the country. And so with especially opiates, a lot of that is past trauma, a lot of unresolved trauma. So we see a lot of that. People who are dealing with multiple childhood traumas. And then it's people who are dealing with like, yeah, hey, I dealt with grief, right? And something happened unexpectedly to me, and that led to me really not knowing how to deal with that. So it's, it goes across the board.
There's a push to have more compassion and more empathy for people, and that starts with language. What is the correct way to speak about somebody who may be recovering from a drug addiction?
Yeah, addiction is a thing about a person, it's not the person, right? So some people say you should just say addiction so that people destigmatize that. We often say, people with substance use disorders. I tend to stray away from substance abuse because I think you can be in a substance use disorder without necessarily abusing it. There's different levels to it. But yeah, I think it just depends on, I don't think there is necessarily a right or wrong. I think, but like you said, approaching it with empathy without saying it's this person's fault, as long as I think you keep in that arena. I think it depends on the person. Some people are like happy, the 12-step programs, you have to say out loud that I'm an addict. And that's kind of releasing for some people. For other people, they're like, I don't want to have that language. I don't want to say that being an addict defines me.
In your role, you run the department, you manage the budget, you hire, you let people go, you find ways to grow people and with their talent. There's so much happening. You have an executive experience happening with this. What are some of the leadership challenges that you've had to come up against?
A lot. Yeah. I think, like you said, overseeing staff, there's a lot of training programs for that, but I think until you do it, you don't realize the things that will come at you. And, I try to see my staff as human beings, right? And I think we have a good relationship. But I think as a leader, and I'm sure you found this as well, there is a power dynamic there as much as you try to even that out. And so I always have to keep that idea of I'm not actually friends with my staff. I can be friendly with them, but at a certain point, if it comes down to it, I'm the one who has to make decisions. And so I want to have open communication. I want, and I don't think that's on their end. I think that's more on my end, that I will always treat my staff with respect and empathy and be really open with them. But I have to keep a boundary of I'm not their friend, right? I'm not, and I think for them that's healthy as well. That you can come to me, but at a certain point there's a power differential there.
Right. And Mural Arts itself is founded by Jane Golden, who is a legend in nonprofits, especially in the Philadelphia region. And she had a dream. She believed. What's some of the dreams and the belief that you have when it comes to this work? Because you're a licensed social worker, right? You've taught before. You graduated from UPenn with your master's degree and those things. What is your big dream and the beliefs that you want to impart on, this department, on the world itself?
Giving people what they're worth. I think that's really important. And I think in our society, we tend to take advantage of folks because they don't know to ask what they're worth. And so, I'm always a big fan of ask for what you're worth, but also for those who have not had that practice, and especially communities of color, we aren't told that we should do that, right? We're told take what you can, and it's no, we ask for what you're worth. But I think it's our responsibility to say, no, you're worth this, and I'm gonna give you this, right? I'm not gonna try to lowball you because you aren't in a position of power. I think for us, it's really having communities represent themselves. So working with artists who come from those backgrounds, really trying to give people a pathway. Not everybody can go to art school, right? It's not something that's affordable for everyone. It's not easy to make a living as an artist. So as much as we can, trying to give people opportunities and pathways. That's been a big focus of our work, is who is a great artist but hasn't been able to have that opportunity.
You hire people who have substance abuse disorders. And I think that's remarkable, honorable, to take people that society may have given up on and forgotten they exist, leaving them on the outlier. What has been something that you've learned from hiring people who are yearning to transform their life?
Yeah, it takes a lot of patience. I love the fact that we work with folks who might have substance use issues, might have mental health diagnoses, but substance use recovery is a cycle, right? So people are on the path to improvement and then they have fallback, and that's normal. That's part of the work. And so making sure that we build that into our understanding. If someone is you know what, you employed me and now I have to go back to recovery, I'm not gonna say, well, we're gonna fire you because of that, right? So it's having a lot of patience, but that does mean, right, that we have to have that built into the program.
And what's the pathway of employment for somebody who may be experiencing substance abuse for mural arts coming through your program? Because when you hire them, you're hiring people that become muralists in some way.
Yeah.
Like they learn, you know, there's things they've done around the transportation center where we're at right now. And you see in the background, you see on the walls, you know, so what's the pathway look like to employment?
Yeah, so our program that we're in right now, it's called Call Me Back. The participants named the program because they were like, you know, this art is bringing me back to life, like it's bringing me back into society. And yeah, so that was one of the options for, we pay people on a daily basis. If they're unhoused, if they are economically insecure, we pay them to work with us in art making. And the idea was to legitimize art as a pathway, right? Because we know it's hard to make money as an artist, but it is a legitimate pathway for people. Yeah, so they can come work with us on a daily basis and make money. And you know, if that's what all people need, I need my $50 that day, that's great. You need that little boost, that's fine. But then we have people who work with us long term. They've been with us for months, and then we see their growth and we start hiring people. We put it out as a normal call for hiring, but within the space. So we expect a resume, we go through an interview just to give them that practice, but then we help them do that, right? So we work with you on your resume. We talk to you about like, okay, what do you think will be in an interview question? We give you feedback on that. And then the people that we've hired, they do amazing work. Like one of our participants, his name is Bello. He started with us 3 years ago when we started this program. He now runs this whole space. Like we hired him, he slowly moved up the ranks and he used to say, like, I slept in this station. I slept on the benches here and now I run this whole space.
Yeah. And it's crazy because you talked about patience, but like, look at what that 3 years of patience did for Bello. Like, that is remarkable because sleeping on the benches in the train station is wild. You know, like when people get caught up and have these tough times in life and that's their only choice, that is a hard thing to navigate, to overcome. A lot of young people are gonna watch this. Can you share with them why social work for you? Yeah. Because it's a very hard field, but why social work? And how does that apply to what you're doing right now?
So I started my career off as a journalist, and I still think journalism is amazing. I was a newspaper reporter. At the time, newspapers were going through a really tough time, and so my idea was always to go back into grad school for something, just to get a closer view on some topic and try to use that in my career. As I was doing, I took some time off from newspapers just to explore, see what my interest was, and I started working for a lot of nonprofits. And I realized as I was doing the work, I feel like social work just really gives me a lot of options. You can become a social worker and work in hospitals, but for me it was like, you know what? I think social work gives me a really good framework. And like you said, like we do this work and anybody can do this work, but the social work framework really is about centering people. And really it gives us, like with my staff, it gives us room for like, okay, this is our baseline. This is how we're gonna start. But like you said, it also is a tough thing, right? And so I think the other thing about social work is that it is set up so that you have a supervisor to talk to, so you can talk about your own mental health. A lot of people that are in social work have their own struggles, so it gives you an avenue for, okay, we talk a lot on my staff about wellness, our own wellness, like we're taking on the trauma of other people. We're hearing it every day. We're seeing amazing people, but it's also a lot of work.
Wow, and if there was something that you did not know before the journey started, what is it that you know now?
Yeah, something I wish I knew before I started on this mural arts journey is that I could really trust people. I'm very much one of those people that like, oh, I can do everything myself, right? I can do this, but none of this work happens if I don't trust some other people. Like if I don't trust my staff to do what they're doing, if we didn't put that trust in someone like Bello, we wouldn't have seen him being able to live up to it. I think I have and I think this happens with a lot of folks who have dealt with trauma, and I don't think I fit in that category, but I think it's just part of my growing up. It's like, oh, no, I have to handle this. I have to be the one responsible. I'm trusting other people to do it. And over again, I've seen people live up to that.
What's a project that you'll have happening right now that you're looking forward to, or something that's happened in the past that has like given a lot of impact?
So one of the projects that we have coming up that I'm really excited about, we previously 10 years ago did a suicide awareness mural. Unfortunately, this is just part of working in public art. There was a building built in front of it. That mural, we, so all these families who had been affected by suicide included portraits of their family members or friends who had died by suicide. And so we wanted to honor that. And so the developer did give us money to continue that work. And so we're launching a 2-year project now to do do suicide awareness. So it'll be a lot of talk with a lot of community. This time around, we're really also trying to focus on specific communities or expanding our reach. We want to work with, we're working with a board member of a suicide prevention foundation who specifically works in West Philly with Black men. And so we're excited that he's part of the project this time around. We're working with the trans community. We're hoping to work in that arena with LGBTQ plus folks. So we're trying to really focus in on different communities of color, but also in response to the pandemic, we know that mental health has been an issue for a lot of people in this pandemic. So we really want to just, again, take away the stigma. We can talk about suicide, we can say the word, but also there's always someone that you can reach out to. And so we're excited to be doing that.
This has been an amazing, amazing interview. Thank you so much, Nadia, for joining us on this session of the Alternative Spring Break, brought to everyone by Words, Beats, and Life. This is awesome work. Thank you so much for sharing that, Nadia.
No worries, thank you.
Thank you.